They said she had an attitude. They said she was rough around the edges. But what they really meant was that Amara Taylor didn't fit in. At Lincoln Heights High, image mattered more than integrity. And Principal Gentry? He was the gatekeeper of that image. Every student he praised walked a certain way, spoke a certain way, came from the right neighborhoods, with the right last names. And Amara? She had none of that. Raised in a 2-bedroom apartment in the middle of Eastwood projects, Amara lived a life that the rest of her school only saw in documentaries. Her mom worked double shifts as a nursing aide. Her father was gone, not by choice, but by a prison sentence the justice system handed out too easily to men who looked like him. Amara raised her little brother, cooked the meals, helped him with homework, all while maintaining a 4.3 GPA. But to Principal Gentry, none of that mattered. During one of their rare meetings, he leaned back in his leather chair, adjusted his tie, and told her with a smirk, "You've got potential, Amara, but the way you carry yourself? It's a little ghetto." He said it casually, like he was doing her a favor. Like that word wasn't soaked in prejudice and disrespect. Amara didn't say a word. She just sat there, blinking once, then twice, swallowing the lump in her throat. She nodded, got up, and walked out. But that day, something in her changed. They thought she was just another girl from the hood, smart, maybe, but not polished, not presentable, not grant material, and certainly not worthy of the Lincoln Heights Excellence Scholarship, a $25,000 prize awarded to the best and brightest senior in the school. Everyone already knew who was supposed to win. Blake Hartman, wealthy, white, legacy student with a clean-cut image and a dad who donated every year. The school treated him like royalty. His resume was groomed and curated by consultants. The scholarship, practically engraved with his name already. But what no one knew was that Amara had applied too. She didn't announce it. She didn't tell her teachers. She didn't brag or hope. She simply opened her busted laptop one night after putting her brother to bed and submitted her application, her real story. Her resume wasn't filled with paid internships or elite summer programs. It was filled with grit. She'd taught herself how to code from free YouTube tutorials, launched an online tutoring program for black middle school girls who were falling behind, volunteered at a community legal clinic to help families fight evictions. She had organized donation drives from her phone. And while Principal Gentry saw her hoodie and labeled her ghetto, she had quietly built something unstoppable. Weeks passed. The scholarship ceremony arrived. The auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, school board members. Gentry stood proudly at the podium, smiling like a man confident in the outcome. He cleared his throat, voice booming through the microphone. This year's Excellence Grant goes to a student who embodies the core values of Lincoln Heights: dignity, leadership, and achievement. Blake adjusted his blazer and began to rise. But then, Gentry's face twitched. Amara Taylor. The entire room went silent. Blake froze, still halfway out of his seat. Gentry's mouth hung open for a fraction of a second before he forced a tight smile. Amara stood from the back row and walked slowly to the stage. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just walked, calm, composed, powerful. And when she reached the microphone, she didn't hold back. "Thank you," she said, steady and clear. "When I first came to this school, I was told that I didn't fit in, that the way I talked, dressed, or carried myself wasn't good enough." She looked directly at Principal Gentry. "I was called ghetto, not because I lacked intelligence, but because I didn't fit into someone else's version of excellence." Gasps rippled through the crowd. But what I've learned is that excellence has no look, no zip code. It's not defined by who your parents know or how many letters are behind your name. Excellence is earned through struggle, through character, through resilience. The auditorium erupted in applause. Principal Gentry sat stone-faced, arms crossed tightly, unable to hide the embarrassment spreading across his face. This wasn't just a scholarship announcement, it was a reckoning. Behind the scenes, the truth began to unravel. The grant committee, composed of community leaders and education advocates, had insisted on a blind review of applications this year. No names, no photos, just work. And when Amara's resume was stacked against every other candidate, there was no contest. She hadn't just earned the scholarship. She'd redefined what it meant to be qualified. But the story didn't end there. The district superintendent, a black woman who had been sitting quietly in the crowd that night, had noticed Gentry's reaction. She had already received complaints about his treatment of students like Amara. Now, with a public spotlight and mounting pressure from the community, an investigation was quietly opened the following week into his past conduct. Amara didn't know that yet. All she knew was that for the first time, she was being seen. Not for her hoodie, not for her address, but for her brilliance. She went home that night, logged into her laptop, and read the email confirmation again. The scholarship was real. The money was hers. The power she felt. Unshakable. But little did she know, her success had made her a target. Because when systems are built on keeping people like her down, they don't stay silent when someone like Amara rises. Rumors started to spread. Whispers in the hallway. Documents went missing from the school server. Someone was trying to discredit her win. And Amara? She was ready. She had receipts. And she was about to expose everything. Amara Taylor, the student they dismissed as ghetto, shocked everyone when she won the school's top scholarship. Her powerful speech exposed the quiet bigotry of Principal Gentry and redefined what excellence truly looks like. But power doesn't give up quietly. And now, the system she just beat is fighting back. After the ceremony, Amara felt untouchable. But it didn't take long for the shadows to creep in. By Monday morning, the air at Lincoln Heights had shifted. The applause had faded. The smiles were gone. Teachers who used to greet her now avoided eye contact. Some whispered behind doors. Others stopped calling on her altogether. And Blake. He wasn't just angry, he was humiliated. His father, furious over the embarrassment, called in favors. Meetings were held. Quiet emails were exchanged. And suddenly, rumors began to spread. She plagiarized. She faked her volunteer hours. She hacked the submission portal. The school's internal server mysteriously lost her application file. Teachers were being asked to sign statements. And Principal Gentry? He was already positioning himself as the victim of a misunderstanding. But Amara wasn't new to this. She'd grown up watching her mother battle landlords, employers, systems that treated black women like they were disposable. And one thing her mother always said? Baby, don't just know your truth. Keep your receipts. And Amara had receipts. Screenshots. Timestamps. Volunteer logs signed and dated. Video testimonials from the students she mentored. GitHub code contributions. Even a digital backup of her application, complete with metadata. So when the school tried to gaslight her, saying, "We can't locate your files," she didn't blink. She simply slid a USB drive across the table at the administrative hearing and said, "Then maybe you need to update your system. Because mine keeps everything." The superintendent raised an eyebrow. Gentry's face turned ghost white. But the more she fought back, the louder the attacks became. Anonymous messages started hitting her inbox. "You don't belong here. You think this makes you better than us? Stay in your place." They even created a fake social media post trying to frame her for cheating on an exam. But Amara was ready again. The exam had been handwritten, proctored, and graded in person. She had witnesses. Each time they threw dirt on her name, she stood up with evidence and grace. But something bigger was happening now. Community leaders had begun paying attention. Black alumni from Lincoln Heights started speaking out, sharing their own stories of being dismissed, degraded, silenced. A former teacher leaked emails showing Principal Gentry referring to black students as cultural liabilities. One document even showed him trying to block Amara's original application before it was submitted. The district couldn't ignore it anymore. A formal investigation into racial bias and misconduct was launched. Media outlets started circling. What began as one girl winning a scholarship was now a district-wide scandal, and Amara was at the center of it. But here's where things turned again. One evening, while Amara was walking home from school, a black SUV pulled up slowly beside her. Inside was a man in a tailored suit. Calm, calculated. "Miss Taylor," he said, "you've made quite a name for yourself." He introduced himself as Marcus Green, a recruiter for a private leadership initiative backed by black entrepreneurs and civil rights advocates. They'd been following her story, watching how she moved, how she didn't just win, she defended her win, with facts, poise, and power. "We believe you have the kind of leadership this country is going to need." He handed her a card, offered her a full ride to an elite summer institute in D.C., and access to a national network of black scholars and professionals. Amara was stunned, but also cautious, because every time she rose, someone tried to pull her down, and she had one more battle to face. You see, Principal Gentry wasn't done. In a last-ditch move to save face, he filed a complaint with the scholarship board, requesting Amara's award be retracted pending an investigation. He claimed her attitude during the ceremony had violated school conduct, that she had disrespected authority in a way that reflects poorly on Lincoln Heights. But this time, he miscalculated. Because this time, she wasn't alone. Amara walked into the scholarship hearing with more than her USB drive. She came with her community, former students, parents, local news cameras, a coalition of black attorneys who volunteered to represent her, pro bono. And when the board asked if she had anything to say, Amara stood up and said, "I didn't come here to be liked. I came here to be excellent. And I won, not because the system lifted me up, but because I beat the system that tried to keep me out. So if you want to take this scholarship away from me, do it. But just know, you're not taking it from a ghetto girl. You're taking it from a leader." The room fell silent. The board voted unanimously to uphold her scholarship. And Principal Gentry? He was placed on administrative leave pending formal dismissal. Justice served with precision. But just when Amara thought the storm had passed, she received an email. It was unsigned. No sender. Just a file attachment. Inside, a chain of emails between Blake's father, a major donor, and members of the school board. The subject line: Operation Quiet Amara. It wasn't over. The attacks weren't random. They were coordinated, and deeper than she thought. There were more names, more victims, and more secrets buried under the surface of Lincoln Heights. Amara opened the last line of the email and froze. It read, "If she keeps digging, she'll find out what really happened to Ms. Carter." Amara's hands trembled. Ms. Carter, her favorite teacher, the one who disappeared without warning sophomore year. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And now, her name was back. And Amara knew, this fight wasn't just about her anymore. It was bigger, darker, and she was going to uncover everything. Amara Taylor thought the war was over. She had fought the rumors, defended her name, kept her scholarship, and watched as Principal Gentry, the man who once called her ghetto, was forced to step down in disgrace. But just when she thought she could breathe again, that email landed in her inbox. No subject, no sender, just one line. If she keeps digging, she'll find out what really happened to Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, the teacher who changed everything for her. The first black woman Amara ever had in a classroom who saw her, who challenged her, praised her, pushed her harder, who stayed after school to help her with college essays, who told her, "You're not too loud. You're just too powerful for them. And then, one Monday morning, she was gone. No farewell. No message. Just silence. Amara had asked, but the answers were always the same: personal reasons. She moved. We can't discuss personnel. But now, Amara knew. They didn't just lose Ms. Carter. They erased her. And she was going to find out why. Amara printed the email, took it to the community center where her mentor, Miss Rhonda, a legal assistant and activist, worked after hours. Together, they started digging. Freedom of Information Act requests. Public school board records. Whispers from former staff. Deleted news articles hidden behind paywalls. It all led to a single name. Lillian Carter, Employee Misconduct File #947B. Sealed by the district. Alleged insubordination. But what did Ms. Carter really do? She told the truth. Months before she disappeared, Ms. Carter had filed a formal complaint accusing Principal Gentry of racially targeting students, including Amara. She documented how students of color were disproportionately suspended, ignored, and denied academic opportunities. She even cited specific emails and test score manipulation. But the district buried her complaint. They launched an internal review, then quietly forced her to resign under threat of blacklisting her teaching license. A gag order. No legal recourse. Just silence. And now, years later, Amara was sitting on the missing piece. The connection between Gentry's long history of abuse and the system that protected him. But what she didn't know was that someone was watching. 2 days after digging into Ms. Carter's case, Amara noticed a black SUV parked across from her apartment. The same model that brought her opportunity weeks ago. But this time, the engine never turned off. The windows never rolled down. And then, the threats started again. Notes slipped into her locker. A letter taped to her door. You're in over your head. Let sleeping dogs lie. She wasn't scared. She was furious. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about how many students had been silenced. How many teachers were pushed out for speaking up. How many scholarships, awards, and futures were stolen, all to protect a reputation built on exclusion and lies. Amara took everything she had, the emails, the district records, Ms. Carter's sealed file, and compiled it into a 47-page report. With evidence, names, dates, signatures. Then she made a decision. She didn't go to the school. She didn't go to the district. She went public. On a cold Friday morning, Amara posted a video titled, "They tried to erase my teacher. Here's what I found." It exploded. Within hours, the video hit 100,000 views. By nightfall, it passed 1 million. Parents flooded the comment section. Former students came forward. Teachers sent anonymous messages confirming everything. A group of alumni launched a petition for a federal investigation. Local news stations picked it up. National media followed. And Ms. Carter? She saw it. She reached out. She'd been living out of state, teaching under a different name, afraid to speak. But now, with Amara's bravery lighting the fuse, she was ready to return. Not as a victim, but as a witness. Together, they scheduled a press conference. Ms. Carter and Amara, side by side, standing not as student and teacher, but as warriors. And just as they were preparing their statement, another email arrived. This time with video footage. Grainy. Security cam. It showed a closed-door meeting at the district office. 5 men around a table. One of them, Blake's father. Another, the district superintendent. The title of the folder? Cover Protocol, Carter/Gentry. It wasn't just a scandal. It was a conspiracy. The district had protected Gentry for years, silencing complaints, rigging data, scrubbing records, all to keep wealthy donors happy and public perception clean. And now, it was all coming undone. The press conference was scheduled for Monday. The media were already assembling. Civil rights groups were flying in. Cameras would be rolling. Truth was ready to be unleashed. But that Sunday night, as Amara sat at her desk, preparing her final statement, her phone buzzed. It was a text. From a blocked number. Just 4 words. "Don't show up tomorrow." She stared at the screen. And then another message came in. A file attachment. One she wasn't ready for. Inside was a photograph. A still from a school surveillance camera, taken 2 days earlier. It showed her, alone, in the hallway, and someone else, slipping something into her locker. Amara stared at the photo on her phone. There she was, standing at her locker, alone, and in the background, a shadowy figure slipping something inside. The second message had no caption, no demand, just one clear message. "Back off, or we make this go away." It was a setup. Someone was planting evidence against her. Maybe drugs. Maybe test answers. Maybe something worse. Whatever it was meant to discredit her right before the press conference. She was too close to the truth, and they were getting desperate. But what they didn't understand, Amara had spent her whole life surviving setups. So this time, she didn't panic. She prepared. She didn't go to the press conference empty-handed. She came with her digital report, the sealed files, the recorded testimony of Ms. Carter, the USB drive with the surveillance footage, the screenshots of the threats, the video showing the man who planted the item, and how he was later seen shaking hands with Blake's father in the staff parking lot. And most importantly, she came with witnesses, current teachers, former staff, parents, students, even a retired janitor who remembered overhearing Principal Gentry shouting about Ms. Carter getting too comfortable. They all showed up. And the press? They were ready. Cameras flashed as Amara stepped up to the mic, flanked by Ms. Carter and a civil rights attorney. She didn't come to tell a sad story. She came to drop a bomb. "This isn't about one student," she began. "It's about a system that rewards silence and punishes truth. A system that told me I was too ghetto while stealing scholarships from kids who looked like me. A system that erased a teacher for protecting her students. And when I spoke up, they tried to frame me." She paused, letting the truth settle like thunder. "But they forgot something. I come from people who don't bow. We build. We rise. And when you try to bury us, we grow deeper roots." Gasps, then applause. The civil rights attorney stepped in, announcing they were filing a class action lawsuit on behalf of dozens of students who'd experienced discrimination under Principal Gentry's leadership, and were launching a formal request to the State Education Board to open a full investigation into corruption, racial bias, and donor manipulation in the school district. Then came the twist. The footage from Amara's locker, the one the district tried to use against her, was traced back to a private security firm, hired by Blake's father, a man with deep ties to several school board members and political donors. The entire thing had been orchestrated, a setup, and now, it was unraveling in front of the world. Within days, the story went national. #Justice for Amara trended for 2 weeks. Principal Gentry resigned permanently, and was stripped of his teaching credentials. Blake's father was indicted on charges of bribery and conspiracy. The district superintendent retired under pressure, and 5 board members were removed following a recall campaign. But the real victory? Ms. Carter returned, not just to teach, but as the new equity director of Lincoln Heights, leading reforms across the district. She'd been silenced once. Never again. And Amara? She didn't just go to that Summer Leadership Institute in D.C. She was invited to speak before Congress. She didn't just get her scholarship. She received 4 more. She didn't just survive the setup. She rewrote the rules. Months later, a journalist asked her, "Why didn't you walk away when they threatened you?" Amara smiled. "Because if I did, the next girl like me wouldn't stand a chance." and I refuse to be the last one who rises. Amara Taylor went on to attend Howard University. She majored in political science and minored in data ethics. She's now building a platform to expose corruption in public education systems across the country, using the same tech skills they once ignored. She's been featured in Time, The Root, and Forbes Under 30. But if you ask her where she started, she'll tell you, in a school where they called me ghetto. And I made them say, "Congratulations."